Hello, everybody, and happy Friday. This is Rates and Barrels. I'm Al Melchior. It is Friday, September 22nd. And as has been the case for the last several weeks, I am here with Enos Saris, and this is the final weekend preview show. We will be doing another Friday Rates and Barrels a week from now, but this is obviously, if you check your calendar, the last time that we'll be able to preview waivers and just talk about fantasy baseball for the week ahead. So we'll be doing, I guess, more of kind of like a retrospective type of thing next week. That'll be fun. But, we got, one more week of fantasy to try to figure out here. And one thing I want to talk about is what approach you take to fab and maybe to roster construction in this final week. Because I do think, well, I know it's a different week. We all know it's a unique part of the season and different rules apply. So we'll talk about that. But we'll also talk about some players to target. And there's also a few big news items. So that seems like the place to start. So let's go there. And we'll start with the news that just broke a little while here ago on Friday morning. Max Fried going to the IL with a blister, and that's going to end his regular season. But only 14 starts this year for Fried. So I guess there's a couple of angles. Darius Vines that would appear would be the most likely candidate since he's being called up to fill Fried's spot. So there's the short-term issue to talk about. Also, just, Fried for next year. How do you look at him for fantasy in 2024?
He's always been just a overperformer, I feel like, in terms of his K-minus BB and in terms of his projections. He's somebody that looks like he is an okay pitcher and keeps putting up great stats. So I think at this point you're just you're locking him down for like a 3.00 kind of ERA, and he's beaten that for the last 250 innings. But in terms of projections, I think that's the kind of pitcher he is. 77 innings. He had a 165 in 2019, 165 in 2021, 185 last year. I would set the over-under on innings next year at 150, 160, probably somewhere in there. Does he strike you as a huge risk for next year? The types of things that he's had range from blisters, which I don't care about, to more concerning arm injuries. So I don't know. I know some people would see that arm injury this year and be pretty much out on him next year.
Yeah. Well, I would set the over under pretty much the same place as you did, or probably around 150. But yeah, I think that you can look at this and say, okay, well, this is the second time that he's out, although granted, probably not for very long, and conflate it with the other issues that he's had. And like I think about past conversations that I had with people about Giancarlo Stanton. And of course, this is, many years and many injuries ago. So now I think it's, fair to consider him an injury risk, but he got hit in the head that one time. He just, all his injuries seem to be unrelated and some of them sort of fluky. So I kind of view this as analogous to that. Like there's an injury history here, but maybe not so bad that I would significantly downgrade him for next year. And like you said, he is consistently an overperformer. He's somebody who can miss bats, but also has pretty consistently done a great job of limiting dangerous contact and pitches for a great team as well.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what the other one was. It was a forearm strain, right? That bothers me. There is a link between forearm strains and Tommy John, but what are you going to do? I think he's too good of a pitcher to, put on a do not draft list. So Darius Vines is not someone I'm super into. I don't know. I just I think it's mediocre stuff. I don't know how he's put up some of the ERAs he's had. Like a 2 ERA in AAA is weird to me, especially when you look at the 7K9 or even the 20% K percentage for Darius Vines in AAA. It's a really weird line all the way across because it's a 20% K percentage that comes with a 17.7% swing strike rate for Vines.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even understand how you put those two numbers together.
I'm not looking at it. I can go and check, but that sounds like somebody who has a very high end zone contact rate and gets no called strikes, or maybe doesn't get a lot of foul balls. But I'm going to guess he's got
average zone contact. My guess would have been changeup. Let's see. Yeah, 26% changeup. So sometimes changeup guys don't turn whiffs into strikeouts because I think, in like a 2-strike count, sometimes it's easier to anticipate a changeup, right? And the reason the changeup is so good is because you can't. It's a deceptive pitch. It's something that needs to look like the fastball, and so if you can anticipate a changeup, I think you can at least put it in play.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he's a changeup first guy does mean that it's possible that Stuff Plus is wrong on him, but it's not a great fastball anyway. So I don't know. I would be careful with him, especially. Let's see, where are they? I'm trying to figure out. Atlanta will be home against Chicago in Vines' next start, and I don't like that matchup because that Atlanta, the old park was called the Launching Pad,
mm-hmm.
and there's actually a little bit of altitude in Atlanta. So those parks, there've been different parks there, but they've all tended to hew towards hitters.
Yeah, which, to get back to Max Fried, that's been a nice thing about him with Atlanta is getting all those ground balls because that stadium is one of the higher altitude stadiums in the majors. And just to get back to something, yes, he did have a forearm strain, but I had said two trips to the IL. This actually is the third one for him this year. So early in the season, he had a strained hamstring. So it's been a variety of issues that have limited his starts for this season. We've got some other pitching related news. Sandy Alcantara made a rehab start on Thursday night with AAA Jacksonville, and the numbers were great. Not that I necessarily put a whole lot of stock in rehab start stat lines, but if you're looking for encouragement, 4 scoreless innings, just 1 hit, no walks, 4 strikeouts. And I would think that probably lines Alcantara up for a start next week. And if he stays on schedule, that would put him up against the Mets at Citi Field.
Yeah. Weird thing that, that happened is he had a 96-mile-an-hour fastball. He sat 96, it looks like. Everything was down velo-wise across the board. It's kind of hard to be like, oh, I'm worried about him at 96, but I would want to see slightly higher velo in his next start. But it's against the Mets at home, and it's Sandy Alcantara. I'm starting him for that. I'm just saying that it's a little bit weird that he didn't quite have all his velo back. And then also a strange thing for me was he threw his curveball the most that he'd thrown it in any start ever.
That's interesting.
All the way back to 2019. You have to go back to 2019. He had 2 starts where he threw it almost as much. But he threw his curveball a ton and he threw it super hard. It was like 86 miles an hour and he went on the IL. Not saying these things are completely related, but a hard breaking ball can be stressful. So I don't know.
Well, given that the velo was down and, this is a move, we talked about this a little bit offline before recording the show, but you were saying, oh, why are the Marlins doing this? Oh yeah, the Marlins are good. And they're right in the wild card hunt very precariously right now.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think this is a situation where you really watch it over the weekend? Because I could see the Marlins going either way on this. Maybe they want.
Yeah, I think he doesn't make that start if they lose the weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible that he doesn't make that start. Although I have a feeling that given their history, they're going to play hard all the way to the end. They haven't been successful in the playoffs much recently. Did just want to make a reference real quick. Saw the baseball project last night, and they were great. And I just thought of them because we were just talking about curveballs, and they have that song Uncle Charlie. So they did a good rendition of that last night. Had a great time in Menlo Park.
Oh man, well, I am jealous. Yeah, we were talking about that too a little bit. So I had an opportunity to see them a couple weeks ago, and wasn't able to go. So catch them if you can, though. But let's move on to some other pitcher news. And this one, is a little bit more of a head scratcher maybe than the Alcantara move. Shea Bieber to be activated later on Friday and to make the Friday night start against the Orioles. So he had been on the 60-day IL with elbow inflammation. He has a pretty generous pitch count of around 80 pitches for this start. And if all goes well, that would line Shane Bieber up to make his final start of the season at Detroit next week.
Hisby, though, was pretty good in his rehab start. I mean, pretty good for where he is now.
Right.
91.7. That would put him back to where he basically was in June. He had been ramping up a little bit, up to 92 right before he got hurt. I think to some extent this is just, you kind of, I think as a pitcher, you want to get back on the horse. If you've had a season where you've been hurt all year and you've been rehabbing, you want to get back on the horse no matter what the team situation is. And so I think he just wants to prove that he's healthy and can pitch again before the season ends. So I would assume he makes that start. And let me see, who is it going to be against?
Next week, it would probably be at the Tigers.
Yeah, that's a great start.
Oh, yeah.
So, if you have the Fab Hammer this weekend and Bieber's out there, spend all $5 on him.
All right. Another move. Another move that will possibly happen over the weekend is Byron Buxton coming back. So what's your thought on that? With Bieber and Buxton both out there, obviously that decision is probably a needs-based one for your roster, but do you feel similarly optimistic about going for broke to get Buxton if he's been dropped? And he has been dropped in some of my leagues.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can't be holding on to Byron Buxton all year. Yeah, sure. With Royce Clayton hurt, I think there's a spot in the lineup. The one thing that sucks is that at this point in the season, you really just want to get playing time, and you're not sure that with all the load management they do, you're not sure that he's going to be in the lineup every night.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point. And I assume you meant Royce Lewis.
Bryce Lewis.
Royce Clayton, as far as I know, has not played in a while.
Yeah, that's a blast from the past.
He was the Moneyball, wasn't he? Royce Clayton.
The Moneyball
serves. Yeah.
What do you mean?
The movie.
Oh, was he in it?
I think he was.
Whoa. I remember him from Giants. Yeah. He was the Giants shortstop for a while in the early 90s.
Yeah. I actually had a string of seasons in the 90s where I drafted him a lot. I don't think I
for
did
the Steels.
Well, but all right. Well, let's move on to some other injury news. Wilson Contreras is out for the season with wrist tendonitis. In terms of a replacement on the Cardinals, I don't know that there's really anything much here. I'm not even sure how the playing time will be split, but you've got Andrew Knizner, you've got Ivan Herrera. But there are some catchers, I think some very good catchers that are out there, at least in certainly a deeper, or I should rather let me roll that back, not deeper, but the shallower leagues, like one catcher leagues, or maybe some really shallow two catcher leagues. So we'll go over there. But anything about Knizner or Herrera that's worth putting out there?
I mean, Herrera looks better if you're looking at the batting average, but underneath the hood, it's kind of scary. I mean, 64% ground ball rate, 33% K rate, 571 BABIP. I love that. Yeah, it's just all small sample stuff. I think, most likely He's just like any other catcher, going to hit 230, and you'll be lucky if you get a bomb out of him.
All right. Well, when we do talk about some fantasy replacement catchers, we've got options both for power and for batting average, believe it or not. So we'll get to those shortly. But just a couple other news items here. Martin Perez has really done a good job going to the bullpen, very reminiscent for me of in Boston. This is terrible. The starter turned reliever turned starter, who's Nick Pivetta. It's late in the season when I can't remember Nick Pavetta's name, but it seems very similar to that kind of trajectory. But Perez has been doing it more with ground balls than with swing and miss in the bullpen, a 2.57 ERA over 28 relief innings. So Bruce Bochy says maybe going back to the rotation. And I think Perez has a pretty nice matchup the way it lines up for him for next week. He would
has him at the Angels.
At the Angels, yeah.
Maybe a two-step at the Angels and at Seattle.
I'd be rooting for the one start week there.
You want the Angels and you don't want Seattle?
Yeah. If I'm
I don't know, at Perez. Seattle is fine for me.
The park is obviously a plus.
That is really weird because that's going to be the last day of the season.
So they either could have their best lineup.
They might actually pitch. I think he'll pitch. I think they'll need to win that game.
You're right. Yeah. I mean, who knows where the Rangers or the Mariners will be sitting?
It's not. I mean, there's like the outside chance that they're. I would say clinching before that day is a small chance.
Yeah.
Being out of it completely before that day is a slightly bigger, but also a small chance. I think the biggest chance is they need to win that day. They play that day. They put their lineup out there, and they put Martin Perez on the bump to get into the postseason.
Well, I guess as I just say, I'm rooting for the one start week. I guess if you need the bulk, there's not a lot of risk in going that way. He does get that great matchup. For sure.
Yeah, he's not going to screw up your ratios at this point in the season, probably.
And
he's got to be one of the better two starters.
I would agree with that. All right. And then one final note here. It seems fitting on the last Fab preview show of the year that we've got a prospect promotion. And this one to me comes as a big surprise. Junior Caminero coming up for the Rays.
I don't get it at all.
I don't either. And skipping over AAA, but putting up great numbers at AA Montgomery. It is the Rays. So,
but what
is there any reason to assume there's playing time?
Why? It's so weird because he's a right-hander and they have 10 right-handed capable bats. And he's been playing third base twice as much as shortstop at AA. And they have like 3 or 4 guys who can play third base. Maybe more. I mean, they've got a lot of third basemen. So he doesn't fit in as a righty or by position, really, unless they're going to play him at short. But if they're going to play him at short, they have a pretty capable guy there right now. Basabe is like a sort of hit tool and defense kind of guy. And then they have Taylor Walls, who's a power, patience, and defense kind of guy at short. So I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll stick him at short and just try to get offense there. But if they do that, is he eligible for the postseason even?
I don't know if I'm assuming he was on the 40-man, but I have to admit, I do not know that for certain.
I mean, it's just a weird all around. I guess. So Fangraph says he's going to split time at third with Paredes and Meade. But Paredes is also a right-hander, is part of my point.
And so what do you do if you've got Paredes?
I'm watching what position he plays as much as how much he plays this weekend. If he plays shortstop, I might be much more inclined to put a big bid on him. Because he's playing shortstop, they're just like, hey, we're going to do the offense lineup where it's Paredes, Caminero, Lowe, and Diaz across the infield most of the time.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, yeah, we're getting this news here on Friday, and we have a few days to see how the Rays handle this situation. If he starts one time, that's obviously
He
gonna.
has the skills to hit the ground running in terms of, good contact skills. Hits the ball really hard. So there's a possibility he's good right from the beginning. He's projected by Steamer to be 10% better than league average the minute he steps foot on the field. So
Nothing wrong
he's
with that.
definitely interesting if he's going to play.
Yeah. All right, that's right. Yeah, you cannot produce from the bench. So something to watch this weekend. And something else to think about this weekend, the final fab. And of course, we've already been alluding to that and talking about whether to bid at all on certain players or not. But in terms of, putting aside, say the Shane Biebers of the world who are, worth breaking the bank for, regardless of what you've got in the bank. Just if you need to fill a need, we've talked about a catcher or at any position. The approach that I took with the waiver wire column this week was usually what I do is I'll, group some players together, give some bid recommendations for different size leagues. And I just thought, last week that doesn't make any sense. Bid recommendation, I mean, just spend what you got, obviously. But I think I put a premium on which team a player plays for, because somebody who maybe has a great schedule, but they're playing for the Braves or the Dodgers, or the Twins for that matter, is there less of an incentive for that player to play every single day versus somebody who is on the Marlins or on the Blue Jays or somebody that's just right on the cusp of the playoff picture? So does that seem like a sound approach to you? Do you have a different idea of how to approach
I think
this
so.
week?
I mean, I was just staring at Christian Yelich and just being like, why won't they put him on the IL? What's going on with him? And then I looked over at the standings page and I was like, oh, they're just not in a rush to get him back. Like it's, they probably want to get him in 1 or 2 games to get his timing back before the postseason. And that's about it.
Yeah.
So I think team is good. One thing I would say though is it's not always easy to paint with a broad brush when it comes to contenders versus not. If you think about it, a bad team may want to see a bunch of different players. And so as much as it's nice to just give someone a whole month, they may want to see what this guy does at second, or if he can handle the glove at short, or you know what I mean? So like,
yeah.
There's a lot of different reasons why you may see funky lineups in the last week. And then there's always just like that day-to-day injury in the end, just when you're like 5 or 7 games away from the end of the season, something that you might have battled through or, played through or tried to get back from, you just sort of are like, okay, it's done, like this hamstring injury for Royce Clayton Lewis is interesting because his team is going to the playoffs. They want him back, but even if the MRI does not show a strain, I can't imagine he plays much in last week. Again, just like maybe a game or two right before. Maybe he plays like Friday and Saturday, takes Sunday off before the playoffs. So I can't imagine that Royce Lewis is worth hanging on to, even if he isn't hurt.
Yeah, which is a shame because he's been very productive for those who picked him up for last few weeks.
All those homers.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense though. So, all right, well, let's get to some of those players to target on Fab. We'll start with the hitters, and I'm going to do here what I did in the column and lump them by position, not position by position, but infielders versus outfielders, separate out catchers. And I especially separating out the catchers because we had the discussion earlier about Wilson Contreras. And I think there's some interesting options in one catcher leagues, players that are likely to be out there. Logan O'Hoppe, Bo Naylor, Luis Campusano, Alejandro Kirk. And I think the latter two kind of defy the stereotype, that you mentioned earlier, that these are guys that maybe aren't going to produce that much power, but could help you with average in the final week if you happen to be able to move up or down in that category.
Yeah. the Angels, I like Logan O'Hoppe for the power, and like you said, Kirk and Campusano for average. And so there's some, depending on your needs, there's some choices you can make there. You can also do something like look at the probables. If you're trying to decide between Kirk and Campusano, you can look at the probables. So Toronto gets the Yankees and the Rays. And so they're going to see Michael King, Garrett Cole, and Luke Weaver. And Carlos Rodon, Clark Schmidt, and no, he's going to see King, Cole, and Weaver. And then who do they see at the end of the week? Toronto, King, Cole, Weaver, and then they get the Rays.
Yep, Ryu,
so Glasnow,
and Gausman.
What?
Yeah, I'm seeing Ryu, Kikuchi, and Gausman.
No, that's their starters.
Or their starters.
Yeah, so they're going to face Glasnow, Littell, and Bradley. Like I don't think that's a good week for Kirk.
No, yeah, pretty brutal matchups for sure.
And San Diego, on the other hand, gets the Giants and the White Sox. So they're going to get Webb, Harrison, Minaya, and then finish with Cease, Clevenger, Urena. There's some bad matchups there too, but I like the Campusano matchups better. Plus, Campusano has maybe a little bit more power than Kirk.
Oh, for sure.
So I say Campusano is the best pickup I like in your grouping.
All right. And again, obviously it's categorical need. So if you do need power, O'Hoppe or Naylor would probably be the better choice than Campusano. But I do agree with that.
The one thing about Naylor is he finishes with a 5-game week.
Yeah, could be a decider right there.
Yeah.
What's kind of interesting though is that I think Naylor also of this group probably plays the least, not by a huge margin, but I mean, O'Hoppe plays every day and almost every day behind the plate, which to me is just bizarre given how much time he missed this year.
I guess it's just like trying to get some plate appearances in. The Angels are like head scratchers. Like every time we talk about it, we're like, and why are they doing this?
Yep. Infield is kind of interesting, and I've got a bunch of guys who, for the most part, are multi-position eligible. So it's kind of covers a lot of potential needs there. But let me just read you this group that I have that I included in the column. The first 4 names that I've got here: Willie Castro, Noelvi Marte, Oswald Peraza, Kevin Biggio. And none of that group is really going to be helpful if what you need is home runs or RBIs. But I think overall that those are some of your best options. And some of those players would be available in 15-teamers. Biggio on CBS has a 4% roster rate, and he's been hitting really well and hitting in the middle of the Blue Jays order. And again, kind of giving him a bonus check mark for being on a team that's playing for something right now.
Yeah. Some tough matchups for them offensively, though. At least he's a left-hander, because some of the tough matchups you'll see are right-handers. But like, does it matter that you have the platoon advantage when you're facing Cole and Glasnow? I don't know. It's you're pushing that platoon advantage pretty hard there. I'm always just like a little bit nervous about Willie Castro's playing time. And so
again, with Buxton possibly coming back, he might lose a start or two there.
I would like Noelvi Marte more, except he's on the road and has a 5-game week. So I think my pick here could be Oswald Peraza.
Interestingly enough, yeah, I mean, I think probably the least splashy maybe of that group, but I think there's definitely a case to be made. And I also included Luke Baker. I'm sorry.
His approach at the plate is he only has 1 homer, so it doesn't look like this way, but I think he's going for homers. So like I think he could totally hit you a homer in the last week.
Double his output in the final week. Well, speaking of homers, another player that I did include, and I think he's only eligible at first base on all or most platforms, and that's Luken Baker. And I included him there because Alec Burleson, he's out for the season. So I figure somebody's got to pick up that playing time slack. Baker did not start for the Cardinals on Thursday. So I think that's one to watch over the weekend in deeper formats for his.
It's so wild. He had a 20% strikeout rate in AAA this year, Luken Baker, with 33 homers. And he has a 34% strikeout rate in the major leagues. It's not a big sample, but the 34% actually is more in line with what Baker used to do. Like, he used to strike out more. And so the projections all say he's going to strike out 30% of the time. So Baker had a wild ride. I think one of the things you just have to realize is that line that he put up at AAA, 180 WRC plus, so great. He's 26 years old. Yeah. So that takes a lot of the wind out of those sails. It doesn't take all of it. But remember, there was a rule of thumb that we had on the show that every year is worth about 25 points of WRC plus at level. And so he's about 2 years older. So, you know, he might even be a little bit more than 2 years older, but you take 50 points off of that, still 130 WRC plus. That would translate to, you know, you'd expect like a 110 or a 120. So when you look at ATC, they've got a 122 WRC plus for Luken Baker going forward with a 243 average and a 286 ISO. So ATC is buying what he's done. And yeah, I mean, we're all talking about trying to get one homer. And, you know, it's between Peraza and Baker, I think, are your best opportunities there.
All right. Well, I'm going to throw out one more name because I'm not real impressed with the power potential of this group as a whole. Davis Schneider. Now he's pretty much well rostered in deeper leagues, but 10 and 12 team leagues. Good chance he's still out there, but he is slumping bad. Went 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts on Thursday night against the Yankees. That is his 7th game in a row without a hit. But in his very brief major league career, this is what he's done. He's been super hot and then ice cold. So if he starts to turn the tide this weekend and you need power at second or third base, is he viable as a 12-teamer?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. He's just trying to pull everything in the air. And I think when you have such an obvious approach like that, you can be pitched to. But I've seen people still try to pitch him, you know, high in the zone where he likes it. And, you know, people make mistakes. I think what you're just rooting for is someone makes a mistake to him in that final week, and he will be the kind of player that would take advantage of it more even than Peraza. I think if you were going to, you know, have the likelihood of one homer over the last week among all these players, Schneider has the best likelihood.
All right. And some outfielders. I have found that in a lot of weeks, putting together the waiver wire column, it's not hard to find some promising outfielders.
I think that's an important observation, because it is why I fade outfielders generally.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I just try to cobble together my last 2 outfielders late in drafts. I have bench outfielders. I use the fab for outfielders. I feel like they're the easiest thing. I mean, if you think about it, you know, for infielders, you have to have a position. You have to fill a position. And then, you know, for outfielders, you need just a player. You know, you don't usually have it separated out into left and center and right. So that alone means it's easier to find outfielders, because you can find all shapes and sizes in that outfield.
Yeah. Well, so that said, it was a little tougher, I think, this week for whatever reason. Tommy Pham, who I wrote about the week before as well, and I think we talked about him last week. You know,
these all seem like they would be highly rostered.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like an obvious ad in 12-teamers and maybe 10-teamers. Evan Carter, who I think we also talked about last week, he's out there still pretty widely unrostered.
Pham 49% in Yahoo. Carter 10%. Wow.
Yeah.
We need to get on that. Although I guess Adolis Garcia came back. So they do now have 4 outfielders and a DH that all would like to play, sir.
Yeah, and again, they're very much in the thick of things, so be interesting to see how the Rangers deal with that. So
Carter's
yeah, maybe
playing time suffers. At least he is left-handed at the plate.
yeah. So Pham to me is an obvious one. Carter, I think maybe is a wait and see over the weekend how that plays out. Michael Brantley, I think, is an interesting case. He's a wait and see too because he's missed a couple of games with the sore shoulder. But I mean, he's doing Michael Brantley things. He is just not swinging and missing. He's making a lot of contact. Playing against righties when healthy in an Astros lineup. So there's a lot to like there for Michael Brantley. Assuming he gets back in the lineup over the weekend, where do you see adding him?
I see 9 plate appearances in the last week.
Yeah, well, there was one game that was a left-handed opponent. I don't know if that was also health related or not, but the next 2 definitely were.
I think in a daily league you can do it, but I see too much risk in a weekly league to just plug him in for a week.
Okay. And then also in the category of playing time risk, Heston Kjerstad, which I thought maybe wasn't as much of a risk because Ryan Mountcastle is on the IL now.
Mm-hmm.
But sort of like with Luke and Baker, where I thought, okay, Kjerstad's kind of coast is clear for him for playing time. And then after Mountcastle goes on the IL, it's Aaron Hicks that winds up in the lineup instead. So I'm not sure that a real playing time problem is solved.
Your next name on this, I think, might be my favorite for deep leaguers. Obviously, Pham and Carter are pickups. I actually, obviously, Pham is a pickup in any league. He's available. Yeah. Carter, there's that sort of, I think Carter, Brantley, and Kjerstad all have that playing time asterisk where in daily leagues, I'm more excited about them than I am in weekly leagues. This guy, Jo Adell, I think is a pickup. I know he's striking out a lot. He did improve upon that in AAA this year. But for a week, I don't think you care as much. Yes, striking out means that he can't hit the homer in that at bat. But I put him up there with David Schneider as the most likely name that we've come up with today that could hit a homer. And he could in fact hit 2. I mean, he's like, if we're talking about all or nothing, like that's the deal with Jo Adell. So I think he's a pickup. I think they're going to play him every day, and I think he's a pickup.
All right. Well, let's head on over to the pitchers. And this was a really tough one for me. This was kind of light in the column compared to how it usually is. Mm-hmm. It's because I don't really trust any of the pitchers who are lined up for 2 starts. Yeah. Although you made an interesting case for Martin Perez. I did make a case for Reese Olson maybe being a 2-start pitcher. And then looking at Fangraphs this morning, and I filed this column last night. So looking at this morning, they've got the Tigers going 6-man and Olson just making 1 start. I still think, and again, the Tigers with nothing really to play for right now, but they've got the Royals and Guardians, who I consider to be favorable matchups for pitchers. Olson definitely gets the Royals, and so does Sawyer Gibson Long.
What about somebody like Alec Marsh, who had 125 innings in 2022, and this year has 111, 125 or so. So I think they really do want him to get innings, to push those innings. And he's lined up for at Detroit, Yankees at home. That's a pretty good one, and I actually think they might pitch him. So I think, man, would you take Marsh over? Would you take Marsh over Perez?
No, I wouldn't.
No.
Because I mean, Perez gets the Angels. I just love that matchup.
Yeah.
And I think it depends too. Marsh? I mean, I suppose if ratios really didn't matter, maybe. But again, given that
strikeout rate, I think there's something there for Marsh. If you cover up the home run rate, we're talking about a 25% strikeout rate, 11% walk rate. That's only league average K minus BB, but league average K minus BB for the Royals with those matchups, I could dig it. I think the projections are maybe wrong on him. They all have him with a 5 ERA. Um,
All
okay,
right.
I'll take Perez over him, but I want to put Marsh out there. You know, you're looking for 2 starters. I think he might actually make that second start because they want those innings. You know, Kenta Maeda is listed as a 2 starter. The second one is at Colorado, and they'll have clinched. So I can't imagine he makes that start. I don't even know if Joe Ryan makes that start. I wonder if they just you know, roll out the rookies for that Colorado series.
Yeah, would seem quite likely. How about Paul Blackburn? This is somebody
Oh, but the
for
matchups are
much of the
horrid,
season
dude.
I've liked for 2 starts. He starts with the Twins. He would finish at the Angels, so obviously
But they're
great
both
matchup.
away from home. I don't know, man. I might put Blackburn behind Marsh.
Wow.
I definitely put Blackburn behind Perez.
Do you think he even makes that second start?
I'm not sure he does, and I like him a lot better at home.
Makes sense.
All right, so I'll go Perez, Blackburn, Marsh for the 2 starters so far. Who else have we got?
Well, maybe Adrian Hauser, but again, I
Mhm.
don't know if I mean, I think if he makes that final day of the season
It's like
start
the 2
against
innings or
the Cubs,
something.
it's exactly.
Yeah, I think that'll be what they do. Hunter Green, probably owned and all, but if you're in like a 10 team for some reason is out there, I like that. I think they might actually need to pitch him all the way through.
Yeah.
And even if they're out on the last day, he might pitch because he needs to build up his innings too. So, and plus I think Cincinnati will kind of want to just have the best record they could have this year. You know what I mean? I think they'll just play to the end.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great call. I don't know, like you said, how many leagues he'll be available, but 10-teamer, I think that's a solid move right there. Yeah, I don't really see too much else in terms of 2-start pitchers.
Pepio, but
Yeah.
it looks like at Colorado, at San Francisco. And I don't know if he makes that last start because I have Pepio in the playoff rotation.
That's what I was thinking too, you know, and so maybe he's a 1-start guy at
And if he's
Colorado.
1 star, yeah, that's not a good matchup. That's not what you want.
This is always so rough, right? It's like you're playing for something this last week, and these are the things you have to deal with.
Where do you put Zach Thompson? At Milwaukee, home against Cincinnati. I think he could pitch for what I was saying with like Marsh and stuff. Like they want him to be a starter next year, so he has to have the innings. So I think he could pitch those 2 games. My question is he much better than Martin Perez, and aren't those matchups worse? At Milwaukee, Cincinnati versus Martin Perez has at Anaheim, at Seattle.
Seattle, yeah. I think Perez has the better matchups. I just like Perez better than Zach Thompson, but
maybe maybe likely. Yeah, okay. Perez, Thompson, Blackburn for me.
all right.
With Green obviously at the top. And
Yeah.
Nola's not going to make that last start. Pretty sure of that.
Yeah,
Aaron Nola's lined up for 2. George Kirby is lined up for 2. He could need to pitch them into the postseason. But he's not available. So
yeah. And I'm starting Kirby 1-start, 2-start. So he's a guy I start pretty much every week. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that covers it for starting pitchers.
Michael
Like I say,
King
we talked about him last week because I think it looked
teamers,
like he would make 2 starts, but
he needs the innings, but he's also running out of innings. I don't know.
The last start would be at Kansas City.
I mean, I would have him ahead of Martin Perez if I was sure he was making that second start. He might.
I just would think that the running out of innings thing would outweigh the building up innings.
Let's see. I mean, because it is pretty comical, right? Like last year he had 51 and he's already at 94. They could shut him down at any moment.
I really feel like that could happen.
Yeah.
And if he does start that game, I think that could be 2 innings or so. They're not playing for anything, so they could go bullpen game.
Man, he went 7 in his last. I think, I know we talked about this, but I think he's an injury risk for next year.
All right. Well, I think it's just no matter what your situation, it's going to be tough seeing your rotation this week. And then in terms of bullpen, and in the column, I put out a list of some well, not I shouldn't say widely, but available starters in 12-team leagues, and it's kind of the usual group that we've talked about the last several weeks: Tanner Scott, Trevor May. I think they're all nice
Who's
options.
The closer in Kansas City?
I don't think there is one. I am rostering Carlos Hernandez in DVR's Maki League, but it's the Royals, and if you're splitting saves multiple ways, it's just not good.
Yeah.
The team I wonder about right now is the Mets, because we now know that Edwin Diaz is definitely not coming back. So does that make Adam Ottavino somebody to target?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, so I like Adam Ottavino. I think James McArthur, high stuff pitcher who has gotten a save in the last week, doesn't really have the strikeout or the fastball velocity or the ERA of a closer right now. But for some reason, the Royals don't trust Carlos Hernandez fully. So just wanted to put James McArthur on people's radar. His underlying numbers are much better than his ERA. Maybe Chris Martin is something that people should know about, because but didn't Kenley just have...
It was COVID IL.
Yeah, so he's going to be back. He's not cleared yet, but he's going to be back this last week. And then they're going to want to pitch him.
Right.
Probably. But Martin is worth thinking about, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if we're talking about Adam Ottavino and you're talking about somebody who maybe gets one save.
Right. I mean, that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Then Martin would, I think, fall in that same category. So
I have $2 left in AL labor. I need 2 pitchers, so I have 2 long $1 strings.
Any thoughts on who you're going to target with those $2? Or would you rather not say?
I'm not going to tell. I know there's people listening.
Fair enough. Put you on the spot.
In fact, I'm pretty sure Colton and the Wolfman listen, because at least they do when they're prepping for the draft. And I'm battling them for 3rd place. They have 83 points. I have 82.5 right now. And Jesse from Baseball Prospectus has 84 points. So there's almost a 3-way tie for 2nd place. Jason Coletti is going to win AL labor this year. So that's fun for him. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations to Jason. So, well, it's good. Well, we wish you all the best of luck with whatever it is you are playing for in this final week, and best of luck to you. Last
name. Sorry, Jason. I just always want to put that extra E on the end. Oh man!
All right.
Well, birthday to him too.
Today?
No, I think it was a couple of days ago, but just wanted to say happy birthday to him.
All right. Well, happy birthday to Jason Collette. And before we wind up this last Fab preview show, just a reminder, you can reach both Eno and I on Twitter or X or whatever you'd like to call it. Eno is at Eno Saris. I am at Al Melchior BB. And just a final note here to send you off that you can get a subscription for The Athletic for just $1 a month for the first year for that deal, where you can get all of Eno's columns, everything else that comes along with The Athletic. Go to theathletic.com/ratesandbarrels and get yourself a great deal on The Athletic. So again, good luck to everybody out there. And thank you so much for tuning in for our Fab previews every week, or whatever weeks you did tune in for this season. And just a reminder, we will be back for a Friday show next week, Eno and I. So we hope to see you there. So till then, everybody, take care, and good luck to you in the final week.
Thanks for listening.